Hey guys, it is your music lesson for Wednesday, April 29th. Welcome back to Woodwind Land. We are going to get started. Let me walk you through your resources really quickly. Here we go. All right, you get Tuesdays, which was yesterday. If you haven't looked at them, go ahead because there's some really awesome instruments, flute, piccolo, and clarinet. Today is saxophone, oboe, and bassoon. So let's get started. We are going to review what a single reed is really quickly because the saxophone is a single reed. Now, remember, it is one piece of wood and it needs a mouthpiece to vibrate against. So saxophone also creates sound with a reed. When the saxophone is blown into, the reed vibrates back and forth. Now, here's the fun part. Even though a saxophone is made out of brass, it's considered a woodwind instrument because of how it creates sound. You blow into it, and it uses a reed, so therefore it is a wood reed wind, even though the whole thing, except for the reed, is made out of brass. The saxophone was invented by Adolph Sax in 1846. Because he made it, he named it after himself, hence the saxophone. Because many orchestra pieces are from before 1846, saxophones are not usually in the orchestra, but if there's a modern piece, they'll be asked to sit in it. They also play in bands as well as jazz bands. The most common saxophone is the alto sax, but there's also the soprano sax, the tenor sax, and the bari sax or baritone sax. There's actually a bunch of others, but those are the four common ones. Now, before we listen to it, I want to show you guys something that I think is pretty cool because I play the saxophone, and when I play in jazz bands, I use this, which is not a wooden reed. It is actually plastic because it gives you a much louder sound, and I use a metal mouthpiece, not a black rubber mouthpiece like I showed you on the clarinet. So when I use it, yeah, it's still considered a woodwind, even though my reed is plastic. It's not gonna be a plastic wind. It's still a woodwind, and it still gives you the cool sound that you can blow into. Still gives you that sound because it's still vibrating against the mouthpiece. So we are going to be watching a tenor sax right now, playing probably one of the most famous tenor sax solos. Here we go with the tenor sax. And you can see he's got a mouthpiece just like what I do. He's playing on a metal mouthpiece to give it a little bit of an edgier sound. If you look right here, he's got, it's called a neck strap, because the bigger the saxophone is, the heavier it is. And so the neck strap helps take some of the weight off of your fingers and puts it on your neck. The bari, when I play it, I have it on a stand because it's really heavy. And then there's one bigger called the bass saxophone. You don't even pick that one up. It's that heavy. Okay, moving on to our next instrument is the oboe. Now the oboe is a double reed instrument, which creates sound with two reeds. Now that sounds a little bit weird because you don't have two separate ones in your mouth. I'll show you what a double reed looks like in just a second. When the oboe is blown into, the two reeds vibrate against each other. The oboe used to be called the hautbois and the shawm. Oboe, that was a long time ago though. Oboes are played in band and orchestra, and the English horn is relative to the oboe, but is a lot lower. It's like kind of the tenor oboe, and it kind of looks, it's longer, and it looks like somebody shoved a tennis ball up the bell. Now, the really cool thing about, just had that soaking in water, double reed is it has two reeds. That's why it's called a double reed. It doesn't have a mouthpiece to vibrate against like the clarinet or the tenor or the saxophone does. It has just 2 reeds. And if you see this part right here, this colored part, that's where it's tied together. And then the cork part, that's where it would go into the oboe itself. Fun part about a double reed is you can play it by itself. You don't need anything else. Kind of sounds like a party horn that you'd have at birthday parties. Very expensive party horn, but it kind of sounds like that. That's the fun thing about a double reed. It doesn't need anything else to play. So we're going to listen to a double reed now, the oboe. Okay, it kind of has a haunting sound, or actually, when they did Peter and the Wolf, they had the oboe as the dog, and that just really is a great sound for it because it kind of sounds like has kind of like an edgy tone to it. Next instrument is also going to be a double reed. And before we get to it, I'm going to show you what that one looks like. Again, this one was soaking in water. This is the bassoon reed compared to the oboe reed. See how much bigger it is? Remember, the bigger the instrument, the bigger and lower the sound is. So if you see the oboe really small, bassoon really big. So it's going to be really, really low. I'm going to play it for you right now before we read about it because you know it's going to be a really low. Big instruments. In fact, if we took the bassoon and stretched it out, it would be 8 feet long, which is taller than me. I'm only a little bit over 6 feet tall, but they kind of wrapped it around itself a little bit so that because nobody's hands would be big enough to play an 8 feet long instrument. So let's learn about the bassoon. Bassoon, we said, was a double reed instrument, also creates sound with 2 reeds. When we know that the bassoon is blown into, the reeds vibrate against each other. It used to be called the dulcian, could be found in 8 different sizes. It's only found in 2 sizes now, the regular bassoon and the contrabassoon. The contrabassoon is 16 feet long, and then the regular bassoon is 8 feet long. They're played in band and orchestra, and you have to control 9 keys with just your thumb. Not all at once. The most you play at once is 4, but they're kind of stacked against each other so that you don't have to push down everything all together. Now, when we watch, you're going to see a bassoon quartet. That's 4 people playing, and you're going to hear a bunch of high notes, low notes. The bassoon can play the most notes of any of the woodwind instruments. I told you it's a low instrument because it's pretty big, but it's kind of a faker instrument because it can play a bunch of high notes too. So we're going to hear the bassoon quartet play. So they were playing a bunch of high notes, low notes all around. It's kind of hard to tell who was playing which is actually a good thing because that meant that their group was doing a great job of blending. When we get back to school, I will bring my bassoon in to show you guys so you can see how big it is compared to you guys, because I bet some of you are not taller than it yet. Some of you are. Some of you have already seen it because when we did Peter and the Wolf, I've shown it to you, but I will bring it in again and play all my high notes, low notes so you can see it. But I can't do that right now because we're not at school yet. But it's a pretty cool instrument and I want you guys to see it and I want you guys to have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you later. Bye.